Today you will be with me in paradise.
To be heavenly is to be one with the Tao. To be one with the Tao is to abide forever. This one is safe even after the body dissolves.
And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
If the slayer thinks that he kills, and if the slain thinks that he dies, neither knows the way of truth. The eternal in man cannot kill. The eternal in man cannot die.
For what is it to die but to stand naked in the wind and to melt into the sun? And what is it to cease breathing but to free the breath from its restless tides, that it may rise and expand and seek God unencumbered? Only when you drink from the river of silence shall you indeed sing. And when you have reached the mountaintop, then you shall begin to climb. And when the earth shall claim your limbs, then you shall truly dance.
I don't see how there can be life after death. There can't be any. There is no life after death because there is no death. It is just a continuation of life.
And so it is. Beautiful passages, all with a common theme, which is our theme for this morning: life springs eternal. It's also, those passages are also an answer to a question that I got in January when we invited you to provide questions that you wanted to have addressed or topics that you wanted to have covered during the course of 2016. And one of those questions was, do we in religious science believe in eternal life? The answer to that question is absolutely yes. Religious science, as many of you know, is a beautiful blending of common threads and truths of spiritual disciplines and faith traditions ranging from Eastern to Western, which is why we have all of these symbols up here to recognize and honor our roots. Our roots come from the various traditions. And every single one of those traditions believes that life is eternal. It did not start with this physical body. It will not end with this physical body. In fact, it did not start and it will not end. That is the definition of eternal. So those passages that we just heard, you might want to know where they came from. You probably recognized a few and know where they came from, but I want to give them back. I want to give them to you again and let you know where they can be found. So the first one is, today you will be with me in paradise. If you were here for our Good Friday service on Friday, you will know that that's one of the 7 phrases, the 7 last phrases that Jesus uttered on the cross. And he said that to the thief next to him, and he said, today you will be with me in paradise. Of course, speaking to the immortality of life and how once their physical bodies were complete, as they would be fairly soon on that day, that was not the end, and today they would live again together in paradise. Yes, that's what that statement meant. And today we're going to invite us into a different, an additional, I should say, explanation or understanding of that passage. And we'll get there in a bit, but not quite yet. The second quote that was offered, that Heather offered to us, was, to be heavenly is to be one with the Tao. To be one with the Tao is to abide forever. This one is safe even after the body dissolves. Well, there may have been a hint in that as to where that one came from. To be heavenly is to be one with the Tao. That comes from Taoism, and written in the Tao Te Ching, which is the sacred scripture of the faith tradition known as Taoism. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. You may have recognized that one from what we often refer to as the Old Testament. Christians refer to it as the Old Testament. People from the Jewish faith do not refer to it as the Old Testament. They refer to it as the Tanakh. But nonetheless, it's from Psalm 20, the 23rd Psalm, the last line of the 23rd Psalm. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. If the slain thinks that he kills, and if the slayer thinks that he kills, and if the slain thinks that he dies, then neither of them knows the truth. The eternal in man cannot kill. The eternal in man cannot die. From the Hindu scripture of the Upanishads. and from The Prophet by Sufi poet Khalil Gibran. For what is it to die but to stand naked in the wind and to melt into the sun? And what is it to cease breathing but to free the breath from its restless tides, that it may rise and expand and seek God unencumbered? Only when you drink from the river of silence shall you indeed sing. And when you have reached the mountaintop, then you shall begin to climb. And when the earth shall claim your limbs, then shall you truly dance. And finally, I don't see how there could be life after death. There can't be any. There is no life after death because there is no death. It is just a continuation of life. Okay, who wants to take a guess as to who said that? Come on, y'all, you know. Yes, Ernest said that. That's from our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes. You know I had to get him in there somewhere, right? So on this beautiful sacred Easter morning, we are here to confirm our belief that life springs eternal. We are here to rest in the assurance that even when this physical body is laid down to rest, which, until we evolve to a higher way of doing things, is what will happen at some point to all of us. And I'm sure every one of us knows someone who has already had that experience. But this is our moment to rest in the assurance that even when this body is laid to rest, there is a new and grander life experience that does occur. And knowing that, we then can have a new level of comfort and freedom to live in this now moment, which is really the only moment there is and the only moment that matters. Ernest Holmes refers to it as the eternal now. That the divine doesn't know yesterday, today, tomorrow. It's just the eternal now. And so when we can let go of our fear and worry about this thing called death, we have more freedom to live in this moment, the eternal moment in the presence of that which is eternal, which lives and moves and has its being as us. So today we're going to get to have an Easter moment about that. We've had Easter moments every single Sunday, and if you don't know what that is, if you haven't been here this month, let me give you a quick update on what an Easter moment is. An Easter moment, it's a new phrase, by the way, that we've coined, and I expect to hear it now all the time. Oh, I just had an Easter moment. Oh, that was an Easter moment. All right, I want to hear that now as time unfolds. But an Easter moment is that moment where we make a conscious, deliberate, intentional decision to let something that does not serve us die so that we can rise anew into a heightened spiritual awareness or a new consciousness or a new expanded way of expressing our true divine nature, which then allows us to more freely share our gifts. Okay, so that's a big mouthful. I'm going to say it very quickly again. An Easter moment is at that moment in time where you deliberately, consciously, intentionally let something that doesn't serve you die so that you can move into a heightened spiritual awareness, a new consciousness, or an expanded way of expressing your divine nature and sharing your divine gifts in the world. We've had an opportunity every single Sunday this month to have an Easter moment about something. Today, we're going to do the creme de la creme, if you will, of Easter moments in just a little bit. And as I have said this month already, I'll say again today, really from a metaphysical perspective, that is how we view the crucifixion and resurrection. From the metaphysical, meaning beyond the physical, we believe that that's symbolic of letting something die so that the new can be born. So the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus really is the ultimate depiction, ultimate Easter moment. Ernest Holmes said, the resurrection is the death of the belief that we are separate from God. Oh, I love that. The resurrection is the death of the belief that we are separate from God. For death is to the illusion alone and not to reality. God did not die. What happened was that man awoke to life. And I loved your quote in your prayer this morning from Ernest Holmes that goes right in line with that. So another question was posed in January that feels very appropriate to answer this morning. And it was two questions, actually. The first one was, do we believe that Jesus was human, was divine in human form? And number two, do we believe that the resurrection physically actually happened, or do we look at it more as a metaphor? I love both of those questions, and I want to just take a moment to answer them here, because I know one of you asked them, and others of you maybe didn't write that down but are asking it anyway. What in religious science do we believe about that? So the first question is, do we believe that Jesus was divine in human form? The answer is absolutely yes. We believe that Jesus was the divine in human form, and we believe that each and every one of us is the divine in human form. Granted, he knew it more than we do. Ernest Holmes, my favorite quote from the chapter on the Christ in the Science of Mind textbook, was that Jesus did not know where God started and he stopped, and God stopped and he started. There was no separation in his mind. So remember, the resurrection is the death of the belief that we are separate from God. He didn't have that belief. We somehow, for some reason, are still hanging on to that belief. So that's why we are not able to do the things that he said we could. He said, these things and more you will do. We have not yet as humanity been able to do that, but we're evolving. So the answer to that first question is yes, we absolutely believe that Jesus is the divine in form, and so are we. He just knew it, whereas we don't always know it. The second question was, do we believe that the resurrection was a physical experience that actually physically happened, or do we look at it more in metaphor? And I love that question because it sent me into doing some research just to see, what did Ernest Holmes say about this? And this is what I found in my reading of various Ernest Holmes books, looking through various concordances of Science of Mind textbook and lots of his writings, and I never found where he directly said, but he always implied that he believed that that was an actual experience, that Jesus physically died and physically rose from the dead. So he doesn't say it specifically, but it's implied, I think, in such a way that for Ernest it was a given, and he didn't think he needed to say it because it was a given. I do know many people in our tradition, in our faith tradition, absolutely believe that it was a physical experience that happened. We have others in our faith tradition that look at it more as a metaphor, more as a symbol, a parable. Jesus was great on telling parables. Some people believe that that is yet another parable. Here's the thing I love about our teachings. I love this about Science of Mind. We say, what is on your heart, that is what is the truth for you. That is what resonates with you. If that's your truth, then that's it. So I'm not telling you have to believe one way or the other. Isn't that nice, a minister not telling you have to believe one way or the other? Woo! Rock on! Rock on! I will make subtle suggestions now and again, but it is up to you, and in your own heart, you get to decide what you believe about that. And whatever it is, that is welcomed in you, and that is welcomed here. But what Holmes did emphasize, and what he did emphasize over and over and over again, which is what we're speaking about this morning, is that the crucifixion and resurrection absolutely symbolized the idea of having that Easter moment, of letting something die so that that does not serve, so that something higher can move into its place. And let me speak for a few moments about something that I do invite us to allow to die today in our belief system, in our thinking, in our way of looking at life. And I offered last Sunday that I would speak to this, and so here it is. And the idea is that if or when our physical bodies have an experience that we call illness or disease, and or when that illness progresses to the point that this physical body is complete here on earth. Sometimes in our religious science teachings, we look at it and say, what did I do wrong? Where is my consciousness? What was I thinking? How have I not been aligned enough with Spirit? Because if I were aligned enough with Spirit, then this wouldn't be happening to me. And we beat ourselves up. and we throw what I will call religious science guilt. I actually call it something else in our foundations class, but I won't call it that here because we're in a church service and I won't say that. But it has to do with our personal belief system. Just do those initials. Anyway, our belief system, right? We beat ourselves up with that. Here's what I want to say this morning. That until we evolve in human consciousness, that the body doesn't have to disintegrate and die for us to ascend to that spirit, to that next level. Until we move to where the body can just, go in a puff of light, which I think we will evolve to that. Right now we're at the place where this physical body has to die for our soul to move on. When that happens, and it will happen to all of us, we didn't do anything wrong. We didn't do anything not spiritually. It's not that we weren't good enough religious scientists. It means that something higher in us knows that its journey here on this radar blip on our radar screen of our eternal journey is complete. Even if from this side of the fence it doesn't look like it, either to our loved ones or to ourselves. But who are we to question if our soul knows that it's time for us to move to that next plane of expression? Who are we in our human limited viewpoint to stop that? To say, no, not now, I'm afraid, I don't want to go. I just invite us to release that fear and release any kind of guilt. I mean, Jesus died. Did he do something wrong? I don't think so. Peggy Bassett, who was an extremely powerful and influential religious science minister many, many years ago. She founded the Huntington Beach Church of Religious Science over in California, of a thriving, one of a flagship religious science church. She was the founder of the Holmes School of Ministry, which thrives today. At the height of her ministry, she contracted Lou Gehrig's disease, which took her human life in 1995. But before she transitioned, she said these words: "We tend to think that the purpose of prayer is to terminate sickness, but we forget that the purpose of sickness may just be to initiate prayer or to deepen our relationship with the divine. If illness is in the service of our own growth, then what really is healing?" I'm inviting us into this new awareness here this morning, or a deeper awareness of this. In his beautiful book called called Healing Words, Larry Dossey said these words. And just as a background, that book, Larry Dossey's a doctor, medical doctor, and this book is a compilation of scientific tests, scientific experiments done to show that prayer does or doesn't have an effect. And what these tests have shown statistically, scientifically, statistically, is that prayer affects our physical body. Absolutely. Prayer affects it. And so this book, Healing Words, is about these experiments that he pulled them all together and then commented on them. But this is powerful words that Larry Dossey said. Even if prayer or attempts at self-transformation fail in the course of illness, there is still a sense in which a healing can always occur. By healing, I do not necessarily mean the physical disappearance of a disease, but something more marvelous. The realization that physical illness is at some level secondary importance to the total scheme of our existence. This is the awareness that one's authentic higher self is completely impervious to the ravages of any physical ailment whatsoever. The disease may regress or totally disappear when this awareness dawns for reasons we may not even understand. When this happens, it comes as a gift, a blessing, a grace. But again, this is of secondary importance. The real healing is the realization that at the most essential level, we are all untouchable, utterly beyond the ravages of death or disease. So I would love us to actually throw out the word healing. Let's not use the word healing anymore. Let's talk about holing, and that's WHOLING. Holing, returning in our hearts and our minds to our wholeness, which is our oneness with God in our awareness. When we do that, when we return again and again and again and again to our wholeness, to our oneness with God, then we have an opportunity to truly live in this eternal moment now, here, right here, this moment in front of us, this moment of God that is right here and right now. Ernest Holmes says, the soul is the one triumphant, indestructible, and unconquerable thing that we possess. Shot from the invisible into this experience, it constitutes your great reality. But why wait for physical death to enjoy and experience your immortal being? Do not prepare to die, prepare to live, whether you are 10 years old or 100 years old. There is no death. It is impossible for you to die, so stop trying to die and start learning to live. I love that. Learn to live in the eternal now. And I think this is another meaning for Jesus' words, today you will be with me in paradise. Today, this moment, right now, is the only moment we have, and this moment is a moment of paradise. When we recognize that it is so, we will be there. So let me talk about two things that keep us from being in this now eternal divine moment. Two things that have lots of tendrils. So the first thing, in my opinion, that keeps us from being here now in this eternal moment is the past. Things from our past that we bring into our mental and emotional awareness right now. So those things in the past can be things like hurts and pain and injury that we have experienced. The hand of someone else, emotional, physical, whatever that might be, injury. We bring that injury into this now moment, and this moment is robbed of its beauty and freedom and power and strength and love. So the past and its hurts is one. The past and its hurts is one tendril. Another tendril of the past is regret. Regret for our lives. Maybe we haven't done everything we said we came here to do, and we're regretting that we missed the boat, which I don't think we ever missed the boat, but we think we did. So we regret that. Or maybe we did something in our life that we're sorry we did. Do you know anybody who might be sorry for anything they've ever done in their life? Not you, of course, not you. But, that person next to you probably has something that he or she regrets that happened, that they did do or they didn't do. Regret. Yes, I'm like, yeah, I know you do. Right? Not me, but you. Regret of the past can absolutely rob us of this beautiful present moment. The other thing that can rob us of this beautiful present moment is if there is sadness over the loss of something. Maybe there was something in the past that was beautiful and amazing and fantastic, and it's gone. Maybe it was a relationship or a job or whatever it might. As we get older, some of us go like, "What the body I used to have, I regret. I'm sorry I don't have that anymore." Whatever it might be that we are sad that it isn't anymore will prevent us from being here in the now. The other thing that keeps us from being in the now that has lots of tendrils is the future. Right? The fear of the future, fear of death. That's a big one. Fear of aging and getting ill. That's a big one that can keep us not in this present moment. Worry about finances, worrying about this, that, worrying about the state of the world, worrying about, here's one, the election in November. Anybody, right? Do you know anybody who has worried about that? Okay, see? Right. We're worried. Oh my gosh, what if? Right. Keeps us from being in the now, which is where our power is. The other place another tendril of futureizing that does not serve us is sounds a little paradoxical in our science of mind teachings, but it's really important to get the subtle difference. And that is, we absolutely teach here that what you have in your heart and in your consciousness and your vision is important, and you create it and you manifest it. So yes, go big or go home, right? Go big. You came here to be big for a song you wrote, be big for God. I'm going to be big for God. Be big for God. Be big as God. So yes, have your dreams and your aspirations and that next level of expression that's bigger than where you are right now. Yes, absolutely do that. And if in the process of having that, we hold it out there as something that hasn't happened yet, and I long for it and I yearn for it, and life will be good when that happens, that absolutely knocks us out of this present moment. And here's the deal, my friends. I've said this before, but I have to say it again. When we're hanging out in the, I will be happy when this happens, oh, I wish this would happen, I can't wait for this to happen, and that's where we hang, guess what? It's never gonna happen, because we always have it out there. We must take the dream and the vision, absolutely, but bring it here into this present moment, right? So the past and the future, thinking about, worrying, fretting, stewing, longing, all of those things prevent us completely from being here now. Ernest Holmes had some beautiful words on that. He said we should erase thoughts of yesterday that would rob us of today's happiness, because the spirit knows no past and is not affected by any belief in it. The past is swallowed up in the victory of a perfect present, which is filled with love and protection. Equally, we must not fear for the future. We should know that it will expand in opportunity for radiant self-expression in perfect timing and unfoldment. He said, we should say to ourselves, I love my past and my future and understand that they are but continuations of the one unbroken chain of life. There is no future to be afraid of and no past to bring discord into the present moment. And I love these words of Jonathan Swift, who was an Irish author in the 1600s. He said simply, may you live all the days of your life. We live all the days of our life by being in the eternal now, this eternal moment. So we're going to get to have an Easter experience. And the Easter experience is going to be twofold. We'll do the first half and then I'll explain and we'll do the second half. The first half is for you to take a moment to identify a thing or things from your past that you might be very aware this morning has prevented you from being fully in the present. There are strips of paper in the program that you received this morning. If you don't have them or you don't have a program, would you please raise your hand, because our ushers will come to you, and raise your hand up nice and high so people can see you. Sam up here in the front. We got some up in the front. So as we're handing out paper, I'm going to keep describing. You're going to write down don't write a book. Please don't write a book. No book writing here this morning. But either write a couple of words to indicate whatever the past is that you're this morning willing to have an Easter moment about, or you can make a symbol on that piece of paper that symbolizes everything, right? Same thing with future. How do you find yourself futurizing? Worrying, longing, whatever it might be, write that down as well. Who else? Anybody else? Oh, I think up front. Did you get? Right here. Right here. Paper. Thank you, Diana. So just take a moment to really tap in and ask your higher self, what am I prepared to have an Easter moment with this morning? Of releasing, letting die the past, releasing, letting die the future, or at least my thinking about it, and having those two things take us away from this now moment. Because today is our day to be in paradise. Today is our day to know our oneness with the divine, unencumbered. Today is the day for me to have an Easter moment. so that I might live in the eternal now, in the presence of the divine. Divine love, divine light, divine glory, divine abundance, divine love, divine power, divine peace. So when you're complete, you can fold your 2 strips of paper and send them to the center. And if you're the person on the center aisle, if you would just please collect them. If you're not quite finished, our ushers will be coming back up the aisle, so you can catch it then. Pass it on in. Pass it in. There you go. Perfect. Remember, you're letting go. Remember, you're making a conscious, deliberate, intentional decision. This is not something we're doing lightly, right? So as we finish collecting them, they're going to come up here and get added to first services, which I'm going to crunch down. If anybody needs theirs still to be picked up, we'll pick it up on the way up. There you go. Thank you. All right, Diana. Here we go. Yeah, we've got lots of them. This is fabulous. Fabulous. Look at everything that we're letting go of. Oh, yes. Perfect. So let us just know right here and right now that as these are in this trash basket, I'm not a magician, so I can't make them disappear. Actually, I have done a little magic, but I don't know how to do this one. But we know that they dissolve into the nothingness from which they came. The past is now in the eternal now nothing. The future is nothing in the eternal now. And so we have symbolically acknowledged that by placing these in this receptacle. And we know we are now in this moment released and set free from the hold the past or the future has had on us. So that we too shall be in that Christ consciousness of the presence of the divine in paradise right here, right now, following in the footsteps of our master teacher Jesus. I'm grateful that this is so. We call this good, and together let us say, and so it is. Now what we know is that we must fill the gap. When we create a void, we must fill it in. And so we are going to fill it in with the second part of our Easter moment. So ushers, go ahead and start handing these out, and I'll explain what you're getting. So what we're going to do is like take a collection right now, only you get to take something out of instead of put something in to this basket. So what I want you to do is pull out of the basket a little rubber bracelet. A little rubber bracelet. They have words on them. Some are thick, some are thin. Different colors. Pull one out. I know some people in first service were digging and looking at every one and getting the perfect one. I would like to invite you to let Spirit pick it for you, right? Let's let Spirit pick it for you. So we know that 40, the number 40, is a very spiritually symbolic number. And it means, read scripture, it's throughout various scriptures, of 40 means, metaphysically means all the time it takes for transformation. But we like to do things in 40 days because that is a time period in which we can transform. So for 40 days, I invite you into an Easter moment. And that Easter moment is that, first of all, you will wear your band. If ever in this 40 days you move into the past in your mind, or you move into the future in your mind, for more than 5 seconds, all right, I'll give you 5 seconds to be there, to recognize that, oh my gosh, I was just thinking or fretting over that thing that happened in the past, but no, I'm coming to the present moment. If you do that, you're good. If you start stewing about, oh my gosh, I wonder what's going to happen, oh no, I'm noticing it, you come back, you're good. But if you hang out in the past, you hang out in the present for the next 40 days, if you do that, you're going to take this off. You're not going to whack yourself with it. No. I don't believe in negative reinforcement. No. You're going to take it off, and you're going to put it on your other wrist, and the clock starts again. Your 40 days begins anew. And as I've had in both the 6 a.m. service and our 9 o'clock service, well, that's a lifetime journey. Perhaps it is. What's wrong with that? A lifetime of taking us back to the present, back to the present, back to the present, back to the present. So I just want you to join me right now in saying a few words. Repeat, if you will, after me. I live in the eternal now. I know I am one with the divine. This eternal now is paradise. And so today, I live in paradise. And so it is.